Welcome to your friendly neighborhood historian, where we discuss just enough history to inform, intrigue, and entertain. I'm Bill Petro. The history of the Santa Tracker, how a typo began Santa tracking at NORAD. How did a typo in my local newspaper erroneously connect the Continental Air Defense Command Operations Center at NORAD here in Colorado Springs with requests for the flight location of Santa Claus on Christmas Eve back in 1955 and in years since? And how can you check in on Santa this year? This is the history of the NORAD Santa Tracker. In 1955, the Continental Air Defense Command home, which would eventually become NORAD in 1958, had an interesting phone call. Now, you've probably heard of NORAD in movies like Dr. Strangelove, Failsafe, War Games, and ID4. NORAD, or the North American Aerospace Defense Command, is a joint U.S.-Canadian military installation that sits 1,600 feet deep inside Cheyenne Mountain here in Colorado Springs. When it was built in the late 50s and early 60s, it was intended to be able to handle a nuclear blast from the outside. Even in this day of MIRV nuclear missiles, NORAD maintains a reputation as a self-contained bunker and for years has been responsible for scanning the airspace above North America for missiles, aircraft, and near space objects. I visited the Missile Command Center a couple of times and seen the Missile Command big board during operations, though the displays have only unclassified information on them when visitors look in. During the Christmas season in 1955, almost 70 years ago, Sears ran an advertisement in the local Colorado Springs Gazette newspaper, inviting kids to call in to talk to Santa. The ad had a typo in a single telephone number digit, or a child transposed two of the numbers. And this number took calls directly to the top-secret Red Crisis phone line of Colonel Harry Shoup, the officer on duty that night at NORAD. Only a four-star general at the Pentagon had that number. The first call was from a young child, and Shoup was annoyed and thought it was a joke when the child asked to speak to Santa, until the little voice began to cry. Shoup then entertained the child with ho-ho-hos and asked to talk to the child's mother when he learned about the newspaper advertisement. He instructed his airman staff to furnish intelligence on the location of Santa's sleigh ride from the North Pole to several callers that night. According to Shoup's daughter, he called the radio station and said, "This is the commander at the Combat Alert Center, and we have an unidentified flying object. Why, it looks like a sleigh." Soon radio stations called him hourly and asked, "Where's Santa now?" And a tradition was born. 1,200 volunteers, including the former president and first lady, have handled over 100,000 phone calls every year, along with 12,000 emails. People from local churches volunteer to take calls. Over 19 million visitors from 200 countries check in on Santa's whereabouts via their website. With various web and mobile technologies, you can tune in at midnight annually on December 23rd to check in on Santa via NORAD using noradsanta.org. It's also NORAD Santa on Facebook and on Twitter X. On YouTube, it's NORAD Tracks Santa. By the way, this is not your tax dollars at work. The program relies on volunteers and corporate sponsorships. It has continued to run through U.S. government shutdowns and the COVID-19 pandemic. Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening. I'm Bill Petro, your friendly neighborhood historian. You can find more details on this topic and others on my website at billpetro.com.